Hey vinyl community, welcome to another video from Sound Matters. Today's topic is how to organise a vinyl record collection, because if you get to the point where you've got a substantial collection, so you're in the multiple hundreds or even the thousands of records, then it's going to get pretty difficult pretty fast to find the record that you want, and you don't really want to be spending hours upon hours trying to find that one particular album by the artist you want to listen to. You want to be able to get to those records quickly, and quickly a state of organised chaos becomes problematic. So we're going to discuss the different methods and the different kind of opinions on how to organise a vinyl collection, but ultimately it's down to you. So I want to hear how you organise your collection after this video in the comments below. So the topic of how to organise a large record collection is as old as the hills, and if you ask multiple different collectors, you'll get totally different responses from all of them. It certainly divides opinion, and everybody is unique and finds a system that ultimately works for them. So we're going to talk about the different approaches and the different methods, and then we're going to touch a little bit on how to actually store the records as well. So let's get straight into the first method. Okay, so the first method is perhaps the most simple and probably the most common, is you simply do things by alphabetical order, and you go sort of first name, last name of the artist, and or the band name, and you just buy yourself some record dividers, which I'll link in the description below, and you simply just label them up from A to Z, organise your records regardless of genre, and that is you done. You needn't do any more. So if your OCD tendencies don't bother you in terms of, say, you've got somebody like Miles Davis in the same section as, say, somebody like Mark Bolan from T-Rex, for example, and I could name several other examples of artists that are from completely different categories, all being in that same M category, for example, then this is absolutely fine. I think there's always a little bit of debate as to whether you do first name or last name, and that's down to personal taste, but for most collectors I think actually this system works pretty well. It's easy to find things, it's simple to understand, you don't have to worry about splitting between different genres, simple as that. And if your collection is, say, a moderately sized collection, and in particular if your record collection doesn't go diverse in terms of lots of different genres, then this method probably works best for you. Method number 2, of course, is split genre alphabetical, and I think this really does work very well and should be considered if you are the kind of collector that has a very diverse taste in music, anything from jazz to heavy metal and all things in between. Where it can prove a little bit tricky and fall down a little bit is where you have artists that change their genre or span multiple genres themselves. So let's take Radiohead, for example. They started off very much pop rock and alternative early in their career, became progressively more of an electronic act really as things have gone on over the years. I know take Depeche Mode, for example, very 80s pop to begin with, and then becoming progressively more electronic and experimental as they kind of go through their career. So ultimately I think it kind of depends how granular you want to get with genre split. So that is down to you, but it can work very well if you're the kind of collector, I don't know, like myself actually, to be honest with you, these days, that has quite a broad taste in music, quite a diverse taste of artists and genres that they'll listen to. Method number 3 is to scrap everything I've said already and organise your entire record collection by the album title instead. So if method 1 and method 2 doesn't work for you, and you have more of an affinity with albums than you do with genres and artists, then this could actually be the perfect approach for your collection. It removes all of that debate about first name, last name, or any genre challenges and all that kind of side of things, and really works for people who have a real affinity with albums more than they do genres and artists, as I say. However, where it can fall down is if you're one of these people that actually is quite bad at memorising the names of certain album titles, and instead has a bit of a weird photographic kind of memory and actually remembers how album covers kind of look more than remembering sometimes the album title specifically itself, then this could actually fall down for you. This might not work for you. This wouldn't work for me, but I know for some collectors this approach works really well. So this next one is for all you fans of the film High Fidelity. I am of course talking about Autobiographical. So this one's one of the more eccentric ways that you could organise your record collection. Of course, the whole concept of it was kind of caricatured in this scene in the movie where the guy's friend comes in, he's organising his record collection, there's records all over the floor, asks him whether it's chronological, he says no, and then he moves on and says, well, it's not alphabetical, and the guy chips in, says it's autobiographical. And it's hilarious because I think, record collecting does tend to attract a certain type of kind of intense, maybe, like quite eccentric type of individual. I'd certainly put myself in that category in many regards, and very, very obsessive collectors, right? And this guy, I have quite a lot of affinity for it because my wife always kind of laughs at my weird ability to kind of remember where I was, who I was with, and what the year was, and what was going on at the time when I first bought any particular record. So what he's really talking about here, of course, is organising things in terms of order of when you bought the record and, what happened in your life, what was going on in your life during that time. But that's kind of the beauty of the vinyl format. I think, it's very difficult to kind of think of anybody having any of these kind of beautiful kind of documentary type things about their own life with anything like streaming or anything, CDs to a certain degree, but I think ultimately the ultimate format for that in terms of carving great memories for yourself is the vinyl record format. And I think, I wouldn't dream of organising my record collection in this way, but it's kind of funny to think about, and I think, to poke a dig a little bit at the vinyl community and how, we can all be quite unique, quite intense kind of individuals at times, myself included. So method number 5 is chronological. So of course, touched upon in the last one, you organise all of your record collection from the order in which that they were released. I would find this one quite difficult to kind of keep on top of. I find this one perhaps to be a little bit more obscure in terms of its method, but all of this ultimately just comes down to how your brain works. So, you've got to find out what works for you, and genres do tend to kind of define eras. So if you're the sort of person that thinks in terms of eras and that sort of side of things, then this could be an organisation method that could work for your collection. Method number 6 is organised chaos. In other words, you don't organise them at all. Now, I have to admit, at many times in my life, I have definitely fallen into this category. Life gets busy, things go on, you've got work, you've got all kinds of other stuff going on, and you tend to just throw things back in terms of the order that you last kind of played things. And for a little while, and for smaller collections and everything, this kind of method can work. And as I say, I do have one of these weird memories. Like I can kind of remember exactly where I was when I last played the record, and I kind of have this kind of weird photographic thing where I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely left that there last, and I remember listening to that then, or I kind of know roughly where things are in terms of the last record being the one that the ones at the front being the ones I most recently played, and the ones kind of towards the back being ones that I haven't played in a long time. So if you've got a smaller collection, then sometimes organised chaos can work. It's not the most fun way to kind of try and find a record, and there's definitely been moments when I've operated like this where I've spent like an hour trying to find one record. It's not very much fun, but sometimes life is very short, and I'm going to blame, I'm going to do it, I'm going to blame kids sometimes. Sometimes things like kids and life just get in the way, and life is too short, and you just have to kind of roll with the punches. Method number 7, and the final one on our list, is that you organise by mood or vibe. I think as music fans, we can all agree that different records have their place for different occasions and different atmospheres, or create a different atmosphere in their own right. So if you're very driven by this sort of thing as a listener, then this could be a very valid way to organise your entire collection. It might take you some time to kind of ponder over the different atmospheres and sections that you want to create, and it's going to be very much down to you and your personal experiences as a listener. I don't know, you could easily, if you're going by genre, you put somebody like Norah Jones, for example, in jazz or modern jazz, but then you could just as easily, with this method, put them under easy listening or a chilled vibe kind of section. So really up to you, and it might take you some time to kind of categorize those things, but it can work extremely well if you're very driven by certain records for certain occasions. So where it can fall down, I think, is if you have a multiple thousands record collection, really large collection, then you might need to do some sort of hybrid where you introduce some sort of alphabetical kind of kind of order within those subcategories, but I think for those that are very driven by mood, it's a very valid way of doing things. And I think really what we can take from this entire thing is that how you organise your record collection is a very personal thing and is really down to you. So, please do let us know in the comments below how you organise your record collection. Let us know how you do yours. We're all different, and I think there'll be all kinds of different responses, and it'll be interesting as a vinyl community to compare the results. So that nearly concludes today's video, but I think before we wrap up, I think we should just touch on the appropriate way to store vinyl records properly as well, the safest way to store your collection. It's all part of the process of organising a large collection of records. I've got a full guide over at the website that you can check out in your own time on how to do this properly and safely, as well as recommended record shelving units and storage solutions that you can check out as well. So do check out those in your own time. It's well worth going through those, but some of the fundamentals are some of the basics. Let's just go through some of these, and this will be sort of teaching you to suck eggs for some of you, but I think it's important that we touch upon the topic. So always make sure that you don't stack your records in horizontal stacks like that, big excessive stacks where you get lots of pressure, downward pressure on the records down below. This can lead to warping over time. It's better to stack them vertically, and you should try not to have too much excessive leaning, as well as that can definitely lead to warping of the records further back in that lean, right? So a shelving unit that allows you to compartmentalize your collection can help with excessive leaning and try to avoid that. So I do recommend you check out those recommended solutions we've got in the link below. And there are several other things to consider as well. So let's take the different sizes of records. For example, if you've got lots of 7-inch singles, you've got 10-inch records, and you've got 12-inch LPs, then try and keep these separate. Don't store all of these in a mixed bag, right? Because again, that can lead to pressure and lead to problems, and just makes things really difficult to find in the same way. So we didn't actually touch upon that in terms of the method and the approach, but it definitely falls under the same category, as well as not being good practice for looking after your records in the long term, right? And of course, want to avoid any excessive heat, any excessive fluctuations of temperature changes. There's some guidance again in that guide in the link in the description of this video where you can actually find the specifics of this out for yourself. But generally speaking, we want to avoid extremes. We don't want to expose our records to any excessive humidity. This can lead to mold over time, so there's those sorts of side of things to consider as well. And of course, we can protect our records further by putting them in proper inner sleeves and in appropriate outer sleeves. So that's very brief kind of crash course touching on the basics, but again, I just recommend you go to the article in the link and you let us know what you think for yourself as well. So that concludes today's video. Thank you ever so much for watching. Please do let us know in the comments below how you organise your record collection. I'm keen to hear from the entire vinyl community how you go about this big task. So thank you ever so much for watching, and if you are new here, please consider subscribing, and we'll see you in the next video.